Hello and welcome to Friedman Consulting webinar. In order to obtain your CLE credits, it's crucial that you attend the entire seminar and also listen and watch for 2 codes. You need to write those codes down because you need to put them on your attestation form once you've completed the seminar. You need to sign and submit that attestation form within 1 week of completing the seminar. And you'll find the form with your written materials. You also find directions with your written materials. So please be sure to listen to and watch for those 2 codes. Today's seminar is Happy New Year. Now please don't share so much. My name is Jennifer Ellis. I'm an attorney. I'm also the Vice President and a consultant with Friedman Consulting. I previously served as Associate Director of Media Technology at the Pennsylvania Bar Institute. I'm a frequent speaker and author, and I've won awards for both seminar creation and social media campaigns. Now, the purpose of today's seminar is to take a look at how people harm themselves via social media. I'm going to give you an update on what's happened over the past year in relation to social media and the law. I'm going to take a quick look at exactly who Facebook's customers are. Then I'm going to look into privacy settings. I'm going to explain them, and I'm going to show you how to update them both for your own purposes and so you can be sure that your clients understand how they can take control of their privacy. So let's get started. Let's take a look at what people post on social media, some of the things they post that might cause them a little bit of harm. Now, I have approximately 1,000 friends on Facebook. Now, they're not actually friends. They're people who, over the years I've been on Facebook, have either asked to be my friends or I've asked them to be my friends. I'd say probably well under 100 are people I actually know. So as you can imagine, I'm very careful about what I post on Facebook because I'm sharing with so many people and they're all over the world and I don't really know much about them. I've made that decision to keep my account very open for the fact that I do a lot of work with social media, but a lot of people keep their accounts much more controlled, and for many people that's probably a good idea. Now, these are some of the things I've seen in the past year. I've seen people insult their bosses, complain about their jobs, talking specifically about lawsuits where they are the plaintiff or the defendant, and in some cases the lawyer. I've heard people detail car accidents or other injuries where they've talked about the type of accident, talked about whose fault it was, discuss how badly they were injured and how much better they're feeling. I've seen people complain about their spouses, their children. I've seen children complain about their parents. I've seen people talking about extramarital affairs, discussing illegal activities, mainly speeding. I've seen pictures of people having a grand old time along with videos. I've seen pictures of people drinking. I've seen pictures of people not having such a great time. I've seen people checking into all sorts of different locations. In other words, saying, I'm at this movie with this person, or I'm at this bar with this person. I've seen people telling friends that they went on vacation and how long they would be gone, and showing pictures and video of new and expensive property. And I've seen people providing extensive information about their children. These are some of the things I've seen. It's just what I've seen. There are over 800 million people on Facebook, hundreds of millions of people on other social media sites, and people share at an incredible rate, both in terms of how often and how much. Now let's think a moment about some of the things I've seen. Let's think about telling people you're away on vacation. Is that a good idea? Especially if you're not sure who your friends are or who those settings are. It's become very common, well, I don't know how common, but it's certainly become a real phenomena that people are getting robbed because they've said that they were on Facebook, they were away on Facebook, and people figured that out. The elderly have to be very careful. There's lots of scams on Facebook, and they might say that they're home alone or say that they're out, and that could cause problems. Do we want to encourage people to rob us by posting that we've just gotten this great new TV? You have to think about what you post, how often you post, and how much information you provide. Do you want to provide information that could help the opposing side in a lawsuit? Do you want to say that you sped or post video of you speeding? All of these things are relevant, and a lot of people just post forgetting that many other people might be seeing what they're saying. And most people, as I've said, and I'll say again, never adjust their privacy settings on Facebook and other social media sites and are therefore completely unaware of how many people are seeing what they're posting. I've been shown posts, not through my friends, but through counsel I've worked with, of people making drug deals on Twitter, believe it or not, and engaging in other behavior that's just unbelievable. And those pieces of information frequently come up in court, and police aren't afraid to find them either by looking through the various sites. In 2011, in the middle of a lawsuit, Facebook has said that the people who post on Facebook are public figures to their friends, and their expressions of consumer opinion are generally newsworthy. Now, this has come up in relation to a sponsored stories, which are a form of advertising on Facebook, and has come up in a lawsuit. So Facebook is explicitly saying that you're a public figure when you post on Facebook. And if you're unaware of to whom you are posting, this could cause a serious problem. Mark Zuckerberg, who is the owner, the main owner of Facebook, has said that essentially when they make changes on Facebook, people become very aware and concerned about privacy issues. But those concerns always go away. And I've seen that to be true as well. When I post about a new change on Facebook, I get a lot of people looking on my blog to see how to control those changes. People are very, very concerned, but then they forget about it and they move on. And he's also said in the past, in 2010, he was quoted as saying he essentially doesn't believe in privacy, and he wants people to share as much information on Facebook as possible. So ask yourself, who is Facebook's customer? People assume that they are Facebook's customers, but they're wrong. And here's why. The user provides posts, pictures, videos, reviews of products, and other content. But generally speaking, they don't provide money. It's not uncommon for me to see emails and posts on Facebook warning me that Facebook is going to start charging for its use. Facebook is not going to charge for its use. That's not how it makes its money. Facebook makes its money through advertising revenue and also through game revenue. There has relationships with the company Zynga and other game creators such as Farmville and Mafia Wars that people spend an immense amount of time playing, and people do spend money playing these too. You can buy coins to get faster upgrades in the games. So Facebook's money doesn't come from its users. Facebook's money comes from the fact that advertisers know there are eyes there and they want those eyes on their products. As any company does, Facebook exists to make money, and it utilizes the content that the hundreds of millions of people who visit Facebook every day provide. Advertisers, just like they do on television, they want people to look at their ads. So advertisers pay Facebook. So Facebook's customers are not the users. Facebook's customers are the advertisers. So it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that Facebook makes changes constantly that encourage advertisers to come along. The timeline change, which is going on right now, previous changes, these are all always controversial, as Mr. Zuckerberg has said. And yet, he's right. People adjust to them relatively quickly, and then they complain when the next one comes along. He said over 1 million people complained about a recent change, but those complaints go away. People say, oh, I'm going to leave Facebook, or we should have a strike, or we should have this, or we should have that. But in the end, Facebook continues to grow. Back in February, when I first started speaking on Facebook on this subject, and this would have been in 2011, Facebook had about 500 million people. Now, as I talk about this in December, towards the end of the year, 2011, Facebook has over 800 million people. That's amazing. Now, will Facebook to continue to grow at this pace? Probably not. It'll probably slow down at some point. But there are an immense number of people using Facebook. It's extraordinary how many people use it. And it's extraordinary how many people are on social media, period. And what most of these people don't think about is their privacy. They think about it every now and again when something happens, but for the most part they're not focused on it. They don't take advantage of the privacy settings that are out there, and frequently they're completely unaware of the privacy settings. So the users really need to think about this, and they need to think about what they're posting and whether they really want to share that bit of information or if they're oversharing. Why does it matter who Facebook's customers are? Well, it's very simple. The more privacy, the less content. The more content, the more people, because people want to read the content. The more people, the more advertisers, the more money. So again, why would Facebook encourage limitation of the data that people share? It wouldn't. It's going to encourage as much sharing as possible. And any true social media site is going to be that way. The whole goal of social media is to be social. It's to share. And Facebook does it very well, as does Twitter, as does LinkedIn, and as do many, many of the successful sites out there. As a result of all this, Facebook's default privacy settings are very, very open, and 70% of people, at least as of last count, don't change their privacy settings. I'm going to give you your first CLE code now. Remember, you need to write this down. It's F as in Frank, 23, C as in cat, 83. That's F, 23, C, 83. Please be sure to write it down because you need to put it in your attestation form. As a result of the fact that people post a lot on Facebook and don't change their privacy settings, there's a lot to be found in terms of the law. And the law continues to evolve, and 2011 has been a big year, and I imagine 2012 will be even bigger. So let's take a look at what's happened. Legal issues that were very common in 2011 dealt with employment, divorce, custody, and alimony, personal injury, attorney ethics and sanctions, and criminal law. As far as employment law goes, it's very, very common for people to be fired as a result of what they post on social media. Teacher firings are very, very common because, well, I'm actually not quite sure why, but teachers seem to be held to an interesting standard. Now, the first one makes some sense. Miss O'Brien here, she was fired for calling students future criminals, and she posted this on Facebook. The other one's a little confusing to me, and there was a case in Pennsylvania as well. And so in two cases, young women have been fired simply because they were holding a drink in a picture. That's an odd one. I'm personally just don't understand it, but all the same, it's perfectly legal to fire people unless there's some protection in some way. So Miss Payne, as well as a young woman here in Pennsylvania, she was fired or was not forced to resign in the case of Miss Payne, and there's since been a lawsuit which she's lost, and also the teacher in Pennsylvania, she lost her lawsuit as well. So it's perfectly legal to be firing people for showing pictures of themselves drinking on Facebook. I've read an interesting article, I give you the quote, the site for it, on the Business Insider. It went over 17 people who have been fired for using Facebook. This first woman was upset because she didn't like her tip. She was being stiffed, and she didn't appreciate it, and so she disparaged the customers, and she was fired. YouTube is another common source of this. A young man wrote a song about Starbucks and Starbucks customers, and he was joking. You know, his tongue was firmly in his cheek, but it didn't matter. The video upset Starbucks, and he lost his job. It's extremely common. People insult their bosses for getting their friends with their bosses, and the boss says, "Hey, guess what? You're fired." Now, are there any limitations? Well, there could be. It depends on why the person's being fired. The NLRB will not allow firing in cases of protected concerted activity, but right now there's really substantial confusion about exactly what protected concerted activity is, and I've written a blog post on the subject, which I recommend you read, or just do a search for protected concerted activity. Regardless, this also, what is protected, does tend to change a little bit with the politics that are present in Washington. The last social media policy, which was found acceptable, actually was found acceptable under the Bush administration, Bush II, and then the current administration, under the Obama administration, no social media policies have been found to be okay. Now, cases where somebody simply is complaining about their boss or whatever, and it's not protected concerted activity, then, you know, it's okay to fire them. People who are wasting all their time at work, it's okay to fire them. Anything that's not protected for some reason, it's okay to fire them. Now, another thing to keep in mind for employers is if you're searching for users, of Facebook and other forms of social media for hiring or firing decisions, you need to be careful there as well. You want to make sure that you're not making those decisions based upon illegal items such as race or religion, but you also want to make sure that you have screened yourself by not seeing information you ought to see. Because remember, even if the employer didn't make a decision based on race or religion, and they were able to ascertain someone's race or religion, the person could simply say, hey, you fired me because of this and not because of the reason you said. So if you're going to use social media in hiring and firing decisions, it's a good idea to have a screener, a third-party screener, do any research for you. I do recommend a social media policy, even though some of them have not been upheld. They need to be broad enough and fair-minded enough that they will be found okay under the NLRB. The first thing is you want to add your social media policy to your computer use policy, and if you don't have one, you should. All employers should have a policy manual of some kind, and they should provide training on those manuals and have the people sign off. You want to understand that you cannot prevent employees from using social media. I've been asked that question. Could you prevent employees from using it? No, you can't do that. You can prevent employees from wasting time at work. You can fire an employee for wasting his or her time at work on social media just the way you could for spending time on the phone or talking at the water cooler. So that's perfectly acceptable. You can also prevent employees from posting on behalf of the company. You simply have to have that in your policy. People have been fired for wearing uniforms in pictures that they've posted. People have been fired for all sorts of behavior. And of course you can, as I said, you can fire employees for non-protected activity. And employees, they need to keep this in mind too. They need to stop and think before they post. It really is amazing, and I have actually said to friends on Facebook, do you really think you should have posted that? You're insulting or attacking your employer or your work. Even if you've had a bad day at work, maybe you're better off just discussing it with a friend than you are posting it online. And that's generally what I say to people. Lawyers, you should have social media policies as well. You want to make it clear to your employees that they may not post anything about any clients. To me, posting about a client online is a terminable offense because you're dealing with all sorts of client confidentiality issues. And of course, as attorneys, we are responsible for controlling what our employees do. We are responsible for the activities. So you're the one, the attorney, who's going to get in trouble, not your employee. So you want to make sure you control what they do. And again, training and have them sign off on the policies. Divorce, custody, alimony, huge areas for social media. People will post the most extraordinary things. Again, they'll say that they are not drinking or engaging in other behavior to the attorney or the judge, and then they'll post about an affair, about spending time in the bar. These things can impact custody. Many cases about lying to the attorney or judge about money, or lying to the attorney or judge about their physical capacity. A case last year involved a woman who was supposedly too injured to work, and then she's posting on a blog about how she's doing belly dancing and how great she feels. The judge was furious and took away all her alimony. I think it was about $800 a month that she lost. People will post about new purchases that they've made while claiming that they need their money, their alimony reduced, or the amount of money they're giving to child support reduced. These are very bad ideas. It's going to cause a real reputational issue for both the client and the lawyer before the judge. It's really very important that the people that you're representing, that you really talk with them about this stuff and make sure that they're being honest with you as much as possible. And sometimes it's difficult for a client to understand how their behavior, which seems innocuous, can be very harmful to their case or can make what already is a very emotional situation worse. And some of it may not be legal in terms of, whether the person has a mistress or not in a no-fault state. It may not matter, but it certainly is going to cause a lot more anger if the person is waving it in the other person's face on Facebook, and just not a good idea. So maybe having a heart-to-heart with your clients about what's a good idea and what's not in terms of social media. personal injury is a huge area for social media. People post contradictory information, and frequently they don't mean to. They may just it may be just a minor moment of happiness or well-being, and then they post it, and it can do a lot of damage to a case. It's really very important to talk about social media postings with plaintiffs in personal injury cases. And it's really important for defense attorneys to be aware of the impact of social media. It can force settlements, it can force cases to just go away all the time because people will post very contradictory and harmful things about their cases. Now, in terms of discovery, here in Pennsylvania, access is granted and denied on a somewhat equal basis. There are a couple reported decisions, I think about 6 at this point, maybe a few more, which are just a paragraph. In these cases, Zimmerman versus Weiss, McMillan versus Hummingbird, and Largent versus Reed, which is the newest, in every one of those cases, viewable public information, again, those privacy settings, showed contradictory information to what the plaintiff was claiming. For example, in Zimmerman versus Weiss, Zimmerman was claiming that he was so embarrassed by a scar that he couldn't wear shorts, but his MySpace account and the parts of the page that were public showed him wearing shorts, showed the scar. Largent versus Reed, McMillan versus Hummingbird, much the same. Pictures and or posts showed contradictory information, and this provided a basis for the court to compel access. Now, on the other hand, the judges are not going to allow fishing expeditions. Piccolo versus Paterson, Ark versus Field, and Kalinowski all are cases in which discovery was denied, and in every case there was no visible content directly related to what the plaintiff had said. Now, Kalinowski is an interesting case. It's a little different because he had a page for his business, which is a bar, as well as an account. Understand the difference between a page and an account. A page is for an individual. Your personal account is where you friend people, whereas a page is for a business or fan. So your law firm might have a page. So Kalinowski had a personal account and a page for his bar, and the bar, there was a lot of marketing stuff which didn't really suggest Kalinowski himself was doing anything, but did suggest the bar was, whereas his account was pretty well locked down. So the judge in the end said there was no relevant publicly available information, but did require Kalinowski to preserve all data contained with his social media account. So we'll see what happens there. Spoliation is a big issue. I constantly was telling people when I first started speaking on this issue that it was completely improper to tell the client to delete information or to clean up the accounts, and I got a lot of argument on that point because there weren't any cases, although judges that I spoke with would support me, because people, I think, just couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that just because it's electronic doesn't mean that it's okay to delete it. And I would always say, well, if you have a letter that's relevant, can you burn it? And people, of course, would then immediately say no. Well, we do have our first case involving spoliation, and it is out of Virginia, which I think maybe decided to make a lesson out of the attorney. They cut a huge verdict in half and sanctions of over $700,000 to the attorney and his client, of which the attorney had to pay about $500,000 or so. He's since resigned from his firm. It's a real mess for him. In essence, it was this terrible case in which a woman died in a truck accident, and after she died, the husband did post some pictures on occasion of him having a good time, and smiling and maybe not seeming miserable. You're not going to be miserable every moment of every day, even if you've lost your spouse. But these pictures and other information were deleted from the account, and it was relevant information, proof that the fact that this information was at one point in the account was provided, and this was the result. So it's really very serious to be deleting information or to be encouraging your clients to delete the information. Criminal cases are another big area when it comes to social media. The police are using social media accounts, they scan them, they're using them to look for crimes themselves and to support criminal cases. They're constantly catching underage drinkers, videos of people posting on YouTube themselves speeding, they get arrested as a result, other evidence that people provide. Recently, here in Pennsylvania, a woman solicited the murder of her boyfriend, I think it was, through Facebook. A man responded, said, yeah, how much? And she was arrested, and then strangely the guy was murdered all the same. It's an odd case, but she has been charged with solicitation of murder. The police found evidence about a double murder to support their case. An amazing amount of evidence. Burglars will post strangely in the middle of crimes and forget to log out, or they'll tweet their crimes on Twitter, or they will even post evidence of the information, post pictures of stealing a ring or this or that. They actually post evidence online, and so people are constantly getting arrested because of social media or because of the information people supply. On the other hand, a few crimes have been stopped by people posting on social media. There are at least 2 cases that I know of in which people couldn't get to the phone but were able to get to their computers and post on social media, on Facebook I think in most cases, that their house was being robbed and they needed help, and concerned friends called the police, and these people's lives, or at least their property, were saved. But the police use social media all the time, and so it's very important that your clients understand that the police are out there, and also that people understand that social media can be a great tool in this regard in helping to catch criminals. So proper use of social media for lawyers. The first is that it's really important that if you're going to friend someone, that's contact. So if you, for example, want to get a witness to be your friend so you can see more of what he or she is posting on Facebook, that's okay, but you need to state who you are. Same for a third party, and there are a number of suggested decisions, and by that I mean ethics opinions, that have this rule. You have to obey all the ethical rules, the same online as offline. You can't contact the opposing client, which again includes friending. You can't contact jurors, which does include friending. No entering accounts illegally, and this would include any trying to guess the password or hacking into the account. Very common in spouse situations where they both have access to the same computer, so you have to watch whether it's actually appropriate for one spouse to be logging into another's computer. It depends on the circumstances. Sometimes people share accounts and make no effort to keep things private, and other times they do. And also you might want to warn your clients about any privacy concerns if people are sharing accounts. And again, don't tell your clients to delete the information. In fact, you need to tell them to preserve it. You should check any freely available information that's posted on social media accounts, and you should preserve the evidence. Those are all ways you can use social media. I've already discussed how social media is being used in court. When a new client comes into your office, you really should ask him or her if they use social media, and you should ask them to stop. The problem is they probably won't. You really want to explain to him or her how serious social media use can be, what a problem it can cause. As I said earlier, people will post things that they consider to be innocuous, but they're really not, and they can cause a lot of harm. You're going to want to give a written notification of social media policy, both in terms of that they shouldn't be using it and in terms that they shouldn't be deleting things, and you're going to want them to sign off on that. And I also recommend you instruct him on how to change their privacy settings. Currently it's perfectly okay to change your privacy settings. The law might change, but as I've already explained in the discovery cases, the public availability of data is what the access to discovery turns on. So if there's a lot of information in that account, you definitely want to make sure the privacy settings are such that it can't be seen. You're also going to want to inspect the accounts yourself. You need to take a look, unless there's some reason for you not to, some evidentiary reason. But if you can, and there's not any ethical problem, you absolutely should take a look at the accounts yourself. On the other side, you're going to immediately want to research and preserve available evidence. You're going to do it from witnesses. You're going to do it for the opposing side within the confines of the ethical rules that I mentioned. What I do is I utilize video recording of the screen. I'll take screenshots. I'll use audio to support it. So, for example, I'd say, this is Jennifer Ellis. It's 1:43 p.m. on December 28th, 2011. I am recording screenshots of this person's Facebook account. The person's name is Curtis D. Ellis, to email address jlellis.ellis@gmail.com. And I take screenshots at that point. So I'm explaining what I'm doing and taking screenshots and showing myself doing it. And I do all of this because it will help the judge to be at least a little more secure that I'm probably not altering the information. And you also should always have someone besides counsel do the preservation, because if the authentication becomes an issue and counsel did the preservation, now you're going to have to withdraw as counsel and be your own witness, and that's no good. So teach a secretary to do it, or have a third party do it, or however you want to do it, but do make sure that person is aware of the rules, the ethical rules in regard to contact and access of information. You're always going to ask for access at some point. Make sure you do a notice to preserve as well. You're going to ask to compel access if the person refuses to give it on the other side, and they probably will. I would, and I would say that you should. You're going to want to subpoena the social media providers, but you're going to have to understand that they're not going to provide any content in civil cases. They refuse to do so under the Stored Communications Act. They will provide ownership information, and sometimes that's relevant. There have been cases where, in criminal cases, where the witness has denied ownership of the account, and the inability to prove who owned that account was a turning point in the case, and the case and charges were dropped. So you have to watch that. But most social medias are not going to provide any content. They'll surprise you from time to time, so it doesn't hurt to do it. But you do want to make sure you get that ownership information. All of this is going to be within the confines of how much the case is worth. I mean, if you have a $1,500 small claims court case, you're going to probably just print the stuff out and hope that the person doesn't lie. You have to be, you have to make sense in terms of what kind of costs you're going to go through for the discovery process. Jurors are a big issue. This has really been a big year, 2011, for jurors. You really have to ask for clear instructions from the judge on social media policy, social media use and internet use during the trial. It's okay to research the jurors. It's not okay to contact them. Jurors frequently disregard the instructions. I don't know if it's that they don't understand them or they don't take them seriously. I'm just not sure what's going on. I know of at least 2 or 3 cases where a juror has actively friended a defendant, and we know this has become a big issue because it was on the Good Wife, I think the show was called, where in that case the judge was actually looking for a reason to overturn the case, but a juror had friended the judge during the case, and the judge had reciprocated, and I'll get into judges in a second. Jurors will research cases, they'll post about them on Twitter and on Facebook, and I would say it's the job of any attorney to keep an eye out, keep an eye on what the jurors are doing, maybe during voir dire, or even get the information about their social media accounts so you can keep an eye on this. It's really a very serious problem with jurors posting, but also doing research and finding information that they just shouldn't have access to because it hasn't gone through the proper process, the proper evidentiary process. Really, really a big concern. In fact, in California, they've made it a crime. In Texas, a young man was held in contempt. Apparently, he found the defendant attractive, and to her good taste and wisdom, she turned him in, or told her lawyers, I'm not sure which, and there have been numerous cases of this behavior. So it's really something to watch out for. Judges have started to get in a little bit of trouble. Normally what judges do is they don't know who their friends are. They just friend anybody. And I do this myself. I'll friend pretty much anybody unless I have a reason not to. But I'm not a judge, and I'm not going to have to appear in court or on the bench and then get in trouble because it turned out I was friends with the defendant. The reality is most judges won't have had any interaction with the defendant, especially if they're completely unaware. The chances are good they don't know who the person is at all. And that's normally been the case. In one case here in Pennsylvania, the judge vaguely knew the defendant because he was friends with the defendant's father, but he didn't realize they were friends. There was a huge hullabaloo. The news was constantly covering it, and it just didn't look very good. And in the end, the judge recused himself. In the latter case, towards the Philadelphia area here in Pennsylvania, the judge had thrown out the charges because he had thrown out the evidence. And after the fact, the prosecutor realized that the judge was friends with the defendant. In this case, the judge and the defendant didn't know each other at all. They were both political figures. And the judge said, I'm not going to recuse myself. I think the problem here is that a lot of people don't understand how social media works, and they don't understand that even if they are not paying attention to who they are friends with, the friend could very well post something about the case, or it simply just doesn't look very good. And my general recommendation to judges is to limit their friends, or at least to have know who they are, and or to check a list of friends against new defendants if they have a lot of friends. And I think if the judge turns out to be friends, the best bet is to reveal it right away. And, that way it doesn't come up later and bite people, which is what normally ends up happening. And I would say if the friend did post about the case, at that point the judge should consider recusing himself. But I think if the judge reveals right at the beginning, and the person's never posted about it, then we don't have as much an issue. But you don't really necessarily know whether the person posted about it and then deleted it, so we could run again into the appearance of impropriety. That's why my general view is it's just best for judges to minimize their friends, simply to avoid this appearance of impropriety. It's a difficult problem, and I guess we'll see it evolve. As far as judges being friends with lawyers, in one state, Florida, judges are not allowed to be friends with lawyers at all. In two states, Oklahoma and Ohio, they are. Here in Pennsylvania, there's not been any decision, but there has been a lot of focus on it lately. So I would just say that unless the judge wants to end up in bad press, it's best to be prepared to deal with this situation and have a plan for how to deal with it if it comes up. Let's take a look at privacy in Facebook. This is a big issue because a lot of other legal issues turn on the ability to access the information, as well as just general safety and security for people who are utilizing Facebook. As I've said a number of times now, most people never change their privacy settings, and the default privacy settings are really quite open because Facebook wants to share as much information as possible. First, you need to understand that there's a difference between a friend and a friend of a friend. So, Facebook generally has your privacy settings either open to everybody or to friends of friends. Look at it this way. A friend is a person you've chosen to friend. You know who they are, at least in a sense, and you've said, yes, I will be friends with you. A friend of a friend is people your friends choose. You're not necessarily friends with them, but they can see what you're posting and what your friends are posting on your wall because of the way the privacy setting is set. And this is one that tends to cause people a lot of trouble. So there are two places to access privacy settings, privacy for your general settings and account for security. And I'm going to go to the web live now so we can take a look at the various settings. So here's a Facebook account, and I am in the privacy settings right now, and I got to them by clicking on this little caret facing down here. All right, so if we click on privacy settings, it takes us to a page that looks like this. You can see, and these are all the default settings. I created an account specifically to teach this course. It's not even completely done yet. So these are the default settings. This is the way Facebook has your settings when you first start. And as you can see, they have three general settings. They have public, friends, and custom. Public is the default settings. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is how you connect. And how you connect are generally, it's what people can know, what people you know can see versus what people you don't know can see. They're very, very open, and you'll see they allow for people to see a lot. Now, First, who can look you up? Who can find you? It's set as everyone. So this is generally one where you might want everyone. It depends on your circumstances. When I've done profiles or set up accounts for people, for example, I've set them up for judges, I set them at friends only because I want to make sure that only the people they have chosen to allow to find them can find them. But it's set as everyone, which means that anyone can find you, and that may be what you want, it may not be what you want. Who can send you friend requests? The lowest setting they allow is friends of friends, which means anybody who's a friend of one of your friends can ask to be your friend. I'm saying friend a lot in this, but you don't have to say yes. Now, who can send you messages? This just used to be everyone and friends of friends, but then spam became a big problem, so they created a friend setting. If you find that you don't want strangers to be able to send you messages, and by messages I mean private messages on Facebook, change it to friends. I never have it on everyone because that's an invitation for spam, but I'll have it at friends of friends or friends. Now, this is a big one. Who can see wall posts by others in your profile? I'll get people who will say they had to unfriend a brother or sister who had a tendency to post inappropriate things, because when you have somebody doing that and you have your setting at friends of friends, then a lot of people can see it. It actually can go more public. You can be just public, which means anyone can see anything posted by anyone else on your wall. You can also make it so it's only me, which means nobody else can see what's posted on your wall. Generally, I have it at friends, which means if somebody who is a friend posts something on my Facebook wall, then my other friends can see it. I don't put friends of friends because I have no control over what some people are doing. And if I become very concerned, if I have people who maybe are a little off the wall and I'm a little concerned about what they post, then I'd make it only me. Now let me show you what I mean by my wall. This is your wall. This is what people see, and there's nothing posted on this wall right now, so I'm just going to write testing, and I'm going to click post. And it's giving me all this stuff right now because it's new. And when you set up a new account, it does this. So now I've posted this, and you see here, it says testing. Now, if I had friends in this account, they could post on my wall, meaning it would show up here. So what they posted is what I'm controlling when I'm changing my settings here. And that's what I was talking about here. I can make it so only I can see what other people post, or only friends can see, or friends of friends, so on and so forth. When I'm done, I just click on done. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is tags. Tags are an interesting thing. They are how people can connect you with a post or with a picture. So, for example, I can tag a friend in a post. I could tag Jennifer Ellis and say, Jennifer Ellis thinks this about that. And what would happen is the two would be connected. And I'll show you what that looks like by going back to my profile here. Now here you see I'm saying Curtis D. Ellis, and that's my dog, was tagged in a photo. That means I am telling the public at large that this is Curtis in this photo. Similarly, in a post, I can say, reference Curtis D. Ellis and say, Curtis said this, or I said this about Curtis, or hey Curtis, what do you think about that? So what I'm doing is I'm directly connecting the person or the dog to the post or the picture. And that's important because you may not want to be connected in that way. So how do you control that? Well, one thing you can do is you can control whether people can tag you or not. You can require the ability to review it, and you can just say, no, I don't want people to be able to do this. If you review it, that means anytime anyone tries to tag you, you're going to have to approve it. So that can be kind of annoying, frankly. Here, when somebody wants to add something to your post, again, you can allow them to or not, or you can turn in the review on or off. Now again, here we're dealing with once you're tagged, who can see it? And you can choose your settings appropriately. It can be public, friends of friends, friends, or if you want it to be only me, you go into custom and you can choose only me. Tag suggestions. This is the extremely controversial. What it actually is facial recognition software. When they installed this, it was one of those times when people went a little nuts on Facebook, understandably so. How this happens is when you upload a photo, Facebook scans it and tries to identify who is in the photo and automatically tags it. You can turn this off just by going here, clicking on enabled or disabled. The only positive thing about this right now is tagging in this sense doesn't work right now because facial recognition software is still not great. Now, friends can check you into places. Checking someone in means that you're saying this friend is in this place at this time. You can choose to enable it or disable it. It's really up to you whether you want to be checked in. You can remove the check-ins if you want to later on. Interestingly, Facebook has just added a map, so this check-in thing is really going to start to have an impact there. Just something to think about. And again, when you're done, you click done. Now, apps and websites, and I clicked on edit settings. Now, I'm not currently using any applications, but it doesn't really matter. You could turn off applications here. You can control various applications. This is where you control it. For privacy settings, it's not really that big a deal, but when you go in, it would give you the option to control what different applications can see. A lot of applications will see a lot more than is necessary. This one, how do people bring your info into apps that they use, is extremely important. What happens is when your friends pick to use a game or an application, they are, unbeknownst to them, sharing not only their own information, but your information with these applications. And as you can see, a lot of these boxes are checked. And every one of these checked boxes represents what you're sharing with your friends' applications. I highly recommend you go in and uncheck every single one of these, because I don't want other people to be able to control what I'm sharing with applications. I want to be able to control what I'm sharing. So I always recommend that you unclick these. Instant personalization was another controversial one. When I load it, it's going to try to show a video. What this does is Facebook has partnered with some websites, and when you go to those websites, it connects your Facebook profile with those websites. You may turn it on or off. These are the current websites they're clicked with. You just click it here, and it gives you a warning. This false rumors. It's probably not that big a deal at this point, but it is something to be aware of. Public search, this again depends on why you're using Facebook. I'm using it for network purposes, so I want people to be able to find me. This public search means that Bing and Google and other search engines, if they search for you, they can find you. However, what they find is controlled by your privacy settings. So for example, if I have public search enabled, but my friend settings are such that they can't really do much but look at my picture, then that's all they'll be able to see. You can't defeat your friend settings by having public search. So it's not a big deal to have it unless you just don't want people to be able to find you at all on Facebook. Then you're going to want to disengage that. So now we're going back to privacy again, and we're moving into limit the audience. We're moving into limit the audience for past posts. This is actually a very useful one. If you decide you want to make it so all of your past posts, which you might have had different privacy settings on, can only go to your friends, this is where you're going to go. You click on limit old posts. As you can see, it says if you use this tool, content on your profile that you shared with friends of friends or the public on your wall will change to friends. But also to remember, anyone who's tagged and their friends may see those posts as well. So this comes back to the tagging issue. But if you do this, what it means is that it takes all of your old posts with the exceptions of this one here and means only friends can see it. So that can be a useful tool. You can also go back and change all your posts individually, but that can be very time consuming. Block people and applications is very useful. There's a couple things you can do here. One is if there's people who have been harassing you, or you simply don't want them to be seen, you can block them here. You can either block them by name or by email address, and it would show up down here if you'd done it. Here you can restrict people so that they can only see certain things. People are not notified when they're restricted or blocked. Restricted means they can only see public posts. There's an option to do public, as you saw as I was going through this. So you can add people here. They won't know, so all of a sudden people who were your friends, but you have a problem with them and you don't want to unfriend them, they only can see things you're sharing with the public. So you might have a reason for that. Here, I've, in my real account, blocked 1 or 2 people, both because they posted inappropriate things on my Facebook wall. These actually prevent the people from even seeing you anymore. They can't interact with you. They can't be your friend in any way unless you're both using certain applications, and they can't control that. Some friends will have a tendency to invite you to every single application that is in existence, and you kind of get tired of it, so you can block their invitations here. Same with events. A lot of people do abuse the event invite. I think one of the reasons people abuse it is because of the fact that Facebook hasn't made it work very well. For example, people will invite me to things in other countries simply because Facebook hasn't made it easy to limit invitations based upon where people live. Hopefully they'll fix that sometime. Also, what would show up here is if I blocked any specific applications, those applications would show up down here. I haven't blocked any, but that's where they would be. And the reason they show up there is if you decided you want to unblock them, you can. Say, for example, you blocked Farmville. That's a game that a lot of people play on Facebook, and all of a sudden you decided you have a hankering to play it. Well, here's your opportunity. You can go back and unblock it. So those are the various privacy settings that go throughout all of Facebook. And the written materials for this program, I actually have extensive PowerPoint slides. I decided to show you this live instead, but I have extensive PowerPoint slides that show you all this. So if you didn't take notes, don't worry about it. You'll find the slides in the written material that show you how to adjust all of this stuff. Now, there's another place you need to go to adjust your security. Privacy is one thing, security is another, and that's under account settings. If we go to account settings, what you're going to do is you're going to look for security, which is the second one down. Now here in security, there are a number of options. One is a security question. If you should lose your password or access to your account, you want to have a security question. But keep in mind, for security questions, they shouldn't be anything that people should be able to guess. They shouldn't be the names of your children, or if you talk about your dog a lot, not the name of your dog. Nothing that's publicly available in any way. These are pretty good ones, and that's why they've picked them. But people have in the past been able to figure out people's security questions and stolen their account information that way. So pick good questions. Secure browsing should definitely be enabled. If you search the web, you look up here right now, it says HTTPS. It's because it's being secured browsed right now. You want this on. The S is also what shows up when you're using a bank account or something. It should show up whenever you're shopping. It, in essence, means secure, and it makes it much harder for people trying to steal the data that you're sending back and forth across the web. It really is a big thing, and you definitely should have it activated. And you just click on Save Changes, and it will activate it. Login notifications. I don't personally use this because it's annoying, but what it would do is every time your Facebook account is accessed from a different computer or mobile device, it sends you a warning. That could be good if you have a tendency to only access Facebook from one place or 2 places, but it could become annoying if you access it all over the place. Login approval is combined with that. It requires you to enter a security code anytime you try to use an unrecognized computer. This is a good thing to use if you think someone's trying to hack you or something like that. This app passwords is actually new. What it is it lets you have control over who can access certain applications. For example, you may you may worry about Jabber or Skype or Xbox. It keeps more security for these applications that are more likely to be hacked. So you can generate passwords and then use those. Recognized devices go again with the login notifications and login approvals. It would have devices that you consistently use. Active sessions, if you're concerned that someone is going into your account from different places, you can see where people have been logging in. Deactivate your account. You can actually deactivate your account if you want to. You just click on it, and you have to tell them why. I don't think you have to do the please explain further. And then you can also opt out of getting future emails from Facebook, because they keep sending you emails asking if you want to come back. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can also download a copy of your Facebook data, and in fact, in some cases that may be something you want to do so you don't have to worry about being accused of having deleted stuff later on. Those are the privacy settings for overall. Now, there's still more privacy settings. I know it's a lot, and one of the reasons people don't change their privacy settings is they do tend to be a little overwhelming. But before I go into that, I'm going to go back into Facebook. Back in here, because I want to give you the next code. The second CLE code, code number 2, is G as in Guy 27K93. That's G27K93. So please keep that in mind. So back to the web now. One thing you should know is that you can actually change settings retroactively, and you can change settings on individual posts. So if we go back to my wall, here you see I've already done a post. You see how this pops up over here? And right now this post is public, which means anyone can see it. But I could change it. I can change it to friends, I can change it to only me, and I can change it to custom. You can create lists. So for example, first of all, let's say you have a particular person you want to hide a list for. I use an example of during Christmas time of wanting to get people's advice on a gift, but not wanting the person who was going to get the gift to see it. So I could hide that person right here while still letting friends to see it. Specific lists, you can control lists. It's a good opportunity to control, say, what your clients see versus what your friends see. Now, also when you're posting a new post, just remember you can control who sees it the first time. You can also add in people. So if I could add in friends, I can also say where I am. So this is that check-in. If I had it so people could not check me in, then this wouldn't work for anybody but me, and for locations again. So you can change individual posts as well if you're so inclined. So those are the various privacy settings that you need to know about. Once you know them, it becomes easier for you to control exactly what's going on for social media, and you can have a sense of who's seeing what you're posting. It's really important that you know what's going on with your posts. It's important that you know what your clients are doing with their posts, and it's really important that people just take control of their privacy. I think that one of the things about social media that's wonderful is it does allow for this great sharing of information. But one of the things that's not so wonderful is people are just unaware of who they're sharing with. So some of the things that I mentioned earlier, sharing when you're going off on vacation, or when you're home alone, or when you've just bought a new item. If you don't know who's seeing that, that could become a real problem. That's why we see people using Facebook to case houses. So it's just important that you know who's seeing the information, that your clients know who's seeing the information, you understand how to change them, and that you take control of them, even if it takes a little while. And again, the PowerPoint presentation for this program does have detailed information on how to make all these changes with pictures and directions. So I do commend them to you to help you through the process, as you saw me flipping through the slides earlier. 2011 has been a big year. It's been a huge year for social media. The past few years have been huge for social media. 2012 is only going to be bigger as the law develops, as more people continue to join it, as more sites come into being. It's going to be quite a year, I'm sure. and all attorneys are ignoring social media at their peril. I think they're ignoring it at their peril for marketing purposes too, but that's a different seminar. Here, you're ignoring it at your peril if you're not utilizing it for strategic intelligence research. You're ignoring it if you're not using it to properly represent your clients. Years ago, it was okay to not use Lexis or Westlaw to do your research because it just wasn't commonly used. But it wasn't all that long before it became malpractice to not use Lexis or Westlaw and to simply rely on books because Lexis and Westlaw gave you greater access. Well, I would say the time is fast coming in certain areas of the law where a failure to take a look at social media sites, say if you're defense counsel in a car accident case, and you don't at least take a look, and it turns out that there was a great deal of information that would have been harmful to the plaintiff, you probably committed some malpractice there. And it's just really important that people be aware of these sites and advising their clients properly and making sure you're not telling your clients to delete the information and that you're using these sites ethically. So the wise attorney is going to make sure that he or she and his or her clients understand social media, understand how to use it, understand the privacy settings, and it doesn't really matter what area of law. I would recommend, for example, that employment attorneys suggest that their clients offer training on privacy settings as a service to their clients. I think that appreciating the settings is important. I would train your children on them as well so they can at least control what they're posting. Never mind, keep an eye on what they're posting. So I commend to you that you obtain a solid understanding of social media during the next few months so you can make sure you can utilize it properly for yourself and for your clients. Again, privacy settings is a huge part of that. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen, and I am happy to answer any questions you may. Feel free to contact me at jennifer@friedmanlpm.com. My phone number is on the web all over the place, and you can also read my blog. I frequently post on social media. If you go to friedmanlpm.com, you'll find a link to my blog. I'll remind you that in order to obtain CLE credits, you needed to listen to the entire seminar, and there were 2 codes, written and verbalized during the seminar. Make sure you write those codes on your attestation form. Submit the attestation form within 1 week of completion of the seminar, and that form is with your written materials. If you have any questions, you may email me about that as well, and I'd be more than happy to help you. Our seminars are educational tools for attorneys, so if you're not an attorney and you've listened to this, I welcome you, but please understand that we're not providing legal advice, and if you need legal advice, attorney or no, you should contact an appropriate attorney in your jurisdiction. With that, I again thank you for attending. I hope you've enjoyed the seminar. I hope you've learned a lot, and I wish you a very happy 2012. This has been Jennifer Ellis with Friedman Consulting.